All right. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Empire Interviews. This is going to be a good one today. We're going to be talking about Radix and XRD. I'm super excited about this when I'm sitting down with Adam today. Last time we tried to do this, the world just had other plans. So this time, hopefully everything goes smoothly, and I hope you guys enjoy it. XRD is one of the most interesting blockchains that is coming up, and I'm super excited about getting into it and sharing this with you guys. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right. Hey there, Adam. How are you doing today? How are things going? I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, going good. Thank you very much for having me on. It's quite late for me, quite early for you, but
Wow.
as always with crypto, it's 24/7. So I'm used to this of the every time zone all of the time.
So where are you at right now, actually?
So I'm in the UK, a little bit north of London. So it is currently that miserable, like grey, overcast, quintessential British scene. If you looked out our window right now, and the clocks just went back, so it's now like dark at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's dark when you wake up. Yeah, it's joy of being northern in the hemisphere.
That's fantastic. So, Adam, I know a little bit about you, but give me like an introduction. Tell me about yourself, what your position is, and well, from there, I'll start asking you all the other questions. So that's what we're starting.
Yeah, so I'm Adam. I joined Radix as the chief strategy officer about 4.5 years ago. Currently wearing the chief marketing officer hat as well. So I've really been with the team here at Radix, or the development company RDX Works behind Radix, for 4.5 years. Joined pre-token generation event. Really joined when I think I was the 21st person on the team. We're currently sitting up at about 60, 65 people. And in that time, we've gone from basically having nothing live all the way through to having a fully fledged ecosystem with a novel VM, novel consensus, novel programming language, and what I believe to be the best UX and DevX in the entire crypto space. So it's been a really good journey, obviously ups and downs as any would be, and something that, yeah, just very excited to be part of. And as anyone who works in crypto will know, the days are long, but the years are short. So it simultaneously feels like I've only been here 5 minutes, and equally, I've been here a lifetime and wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
No, absolutely. I feel the same way. I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, to quote the Ben Armstrong, right? Um, a lot of people come for the money, but then stay for the revolution. And I feel like that's really what's gone on with a lot of people that find their way to this space, because at first it's kind of like, oh, I see people making a lot of money in this market. I see number go up. I'm going to play around with it. You have a good time. You get wrecked. You end up staying. And then you're like, wait, there's actually more than just the speculation market here. There's a whole community of people. There's technology. There are people building cool things. And I think that that's one of the things that from the outside, it's hard to see until you hang around. There are a lot of fair weather friends in crypto. They come in, they're a bunch of influencers, they're financial institutions. I mean, we've got people like Larry Fink. Crypto's a scam, right? Buys it, and then price goes up, and he's like, okay, this is safe for everybody. We need to now put it in everybody's pension funds. And actually,
Yep.
we'll be the custodians that handle all the management of that. So just give it to us. You don't even have to hold it anymore. Just buy some Bitcoin, and then so it's kind of funny how we've watched these crazy shifts where crypto wasn't even a conversation in the political spectrum, the political realm. There's a lot of speculation now that a good portion of what tilted the scales had to do with crypto regulation, crypto lobbying, people with a lot of influence in the space in the financial sector that believe in this innovation. So, Adam, I said a lot of stuff there very quickly. The question that I have for you is, before crypto, what was your life? What are things that you were into? Tell me a little bit about your background before crypto.
Yeah, so you hit like 10 things I want to reply to just in that short bit. So like the coming into crypto and then realizing it's tech, I was professionally weirdly the opposite. So my background before I got involved in crypto, I've always worked in startups or for my own companies. So had a relatively successful kind of content business. Then started working for some game publishers like Activision Blizzard, Riot, doing a lot of their kind of esports and content side. Then joined a very early stage online video platform, pre-seed, competing with Twitch. Basically grew that company from literally a pre-seed all the way through to very, very profitable, successful business, which didn't need more investment after that point. And all through that period, this was again back in like the 2012, 2013, 2014 period. We raised the seed money. I think it was in like 2013 for it. 2014, 2015. Obviously, crypto being a company working in like the video games and like esports space, we all knew about crypto. We were massive nerds. And one thing that really kept coming up was the person who led the seed round for us had a big hydroelectric plant in northern Sweden. And he was massively into crypto and using spare server capacity there to mine Bitcoin. And so he was always kind of hammering us, being like, crypto's this massive thing. You should really come and do crypto stuff. And we were like, yeah, we know about crypto. We're all personally involved with crypto. We're all keeping an eye on it. But like, this is really early days. Is it really something we need to do in our online video business there when actually this business is super successful? And so we were really resistant to doing things because we were like, this is a nice adjacent thing. It's got a good ideology, but I don't really see how this fits into business technology wise when it was predominantly just Bitcoin. When Ethereum came around and obviously smart contract came around, there was a bit more kind of meat on the bones there and things started to form. And at the same time in the online video space and especially online advertising space, there was a huge number of issues with like YouTube and especially Google showing video ads against some really unsavory content. So full on like, for example, like beheading content. And then suddenly there was a sting piece in some major media outlets. Everyone pulled their money out of the space. And from having worked in like online ads and online video for that time, and always having crypto in like the back of our heads and blockchain specifically in the back of our heads and being nudged at, we were like, all of these things could be solved and all of these black boxes would be so much better on a permissionless DLT or blockchain. And we then had a reason to really go and look at this. So I actually joined the crypto space professionally behind the scenes in 2017 when we were like, hey, we can do something good here. We actually think there's something meaningful and our kind of day job business is just being wrecked through no fault of our own and the entire market's pulled out because of activities of Google. And this is a nightmare. This is unsustainable and this is unjust ultimately. We then did a successful ICO in 2018. Terrible point to do an ICO. It was in late 2018. It was after that bubble had burst. But we had a successful raise and that company's still running successfully now. But the thing that kind of drew me fully into crypto from a pragmatic basis is DeFi. And back then, DeFi wasn't really the term when I joined Radix, but this idea of decentralized lending, of decentralized exchanges, money markets, all of these sort of things were being spoken about without that term. And the bit that really sold me is that any DLT, any blockchain, any solution where you're using this technology, ultimately you have to have economic value of putting that on a decentralized database essentially versus running on a centralized database because there will always be a higher cost of it, always. So what is the benefit you're getting? And with DeFi, I think the industry really found product market fit. And when I say DeFi, I think a lot broader than what we kind of do today. It's not just DEXs and lend borrow markets. It includes things like RWAs. It includes things like currently illiquid assets. So say like farming equipment or lumber or steel or oil on freight to ship somewhere, which again you could put under RWAs, but also going through to like in-game assets or art collections or NFTs and things like that, which again could argue are NFTs or RWAs, but even going down the road of like your identity, your reputation, your education certificates, it's things of value. And DeFi is ultimately transacting things of value. And in my mind, this is where the killer use case is that if the internet is like a global data layer where anyone can interact with anything else at any time and transfer data around, DLT and blockchain tech is ultimately doing the same for asset or anything of value. So it's creating a universal asset layer. And I think whoever solves that is going to be in an incredible position, because ultimately it's not about the technology and ideology, which is obviously really important, but purely pragmatically, the global financial system and money markets for most of time have all been about allocating capital and liquidity based on opportunity and risk. And if you can do that faster, with less middlemen, more efficiently, and more dynamically, you're doing what the system wants to do better. And naturally, you're going to move to that. And the best use case and example of that is when you get things like major hedge funds buying a building like one block closer to the exchange because their fiber line directly into the exchange shaves like 10,000th of a second off a transaction time. If people are optimizing for that, imagine if you can optimize being able to trade using these examples, like get collateral by lending like car equity to be able to borrow an asset on Shanghai Stock Exchange to go and trade it on New York for something else, and then unbundle that all in a single atomic transaction. Today, that would probably take a week and multiple middlemen and eat up a whole bunch of kind of value from those middlemen and that time. And that's not what the system wants. And this is why you're seeing people like Larry Finch coming up going, we're going to tokenize everything. It's not because they ideologically think this is better, but it's because the world's starting to realize, both from the consumer side, where I hold my assets and how I utilize my assets are two separate things. And that's a new thing. But secondly, the big institutions are going, actually, I can shave 0.1% off some supplier if I can not have to use them as a middleman to interface into something else I need to interface to. And that is way less than the cost of contributing to a DLT and putting everything on a DLT. And those two things combined make me think that essentially DeFi and DLT is inevitable. And as a lovely side effect of that, we're going to have a more just and equitable world where opportunity is better enforced. And also we see better enforcement of things like regulation, because it can be far more surgical than it is today, just because DLTs give you huge advantages there. Which again was another big ramble back to your piece.
No.
So
I love it. I love it because yeah, you've touched on a lot of things there very quickly, and I think that one of the most obvious use cases, I think, for crypto, because a lot of people have said that the problem with crypto up to this point has basically been product market fit, and there's not been an ability to express that product market fit in a way that can be comprehended by everybody. Well, and I think that it is both a problem of hiding the wires, because there are too many steps in between getting to that understanding. Like for me, the like aha moment was when I had bought crypto on centralized exchanges. I kept hearing that I needed to put the crypto into, a self custody wallet just in case this stuff. When I finally made a wallet and then made another wallet and was able to send my money to myself, and there was nothing in between that transaction, that was when I was like, wow. Okay, so not only do I now custody my own money, but nobody except for myself can move it or touch it or use it for anything. And nothing else that we use in society that is like traditional allows you to have that freedom. The banks close. I can go to the ATM. The ATM can be down. I can try to do all these other things. And in theory, I say that I feel like the biggest challenge to traditional market systems is crypto. And that's kind of why it's been cast kind of aside. And it's because our entire system is based on credit and debt. And the entire system of crypto is basically kind of like a cash system, because it's like one asset equals one asset. There's not like a specific, it's solid. It's cash. It's basically, it is worth what it is worth. It's not a promissory note of something that will be or that could be if you were to redeem it. And so I think that that's kind of one of the biggest revolutions that we have going on here.
And it can definitely, I think what we're seeing with an advancement of that is that it can't be that there isn't a credit note. So in finance, there will always be credit notes. There will always be derivatives and options and things like that that are backed ultimately by assets or on risk adjusted assets. And that is what finance is really good at. The problem in traditional finance is liquidity is siloed to whatever degree. Whereas in DeFi, at least if you're running on a single chain that's able to scale to anything, everything should be interoperable with anything else instantly. And so then in that position where part of your risk you've got to factor in like counterparty risk in traditional finance is going, well, sure, I will take that credit note from you, but if I need to go and liquidate that because of whatever, I've got to go through some third party. And what if they have a problem? This might take weeks, and then it goes through the court systems and all of this. If you're on, say, like Aave, and you get liquidated, it instantly goes to a DEX, which instantly swaps to the base asset that you wanted to at the price that's available there straight away. Already, you've then got a system where that's a 24/7 market that you can basically guarantee is going to deliver what it promises on the tin. Whereas, as you say in the example of the bank closes, well, if you've got even standard clearing, which I believe in the US, it's recently changed from 2 days to 1 day clearing on the back end. Like, if you think of the difference between clearing those transactions and unpacking that, even on a day versus instantly on a counterparty risk standpoint, now suddenly you can be a lot more confident in the system of what you're doing here and you can put more capital to work. So I think peer-to-peer money is what Bitcoin really started out as being. But I think what we're seeing evolve, especially with smart contracts and the way finance naturally has benefited the world, is programmable finance that is completely interoperable and on a single network. And there's precedent for this as well. If you look back to data, using that example, if you go back in ancient human time, the only way we could share information is I could come and speak to you. And I could tell you a story, for example, and then you could go and tell someone else a story. It was peer to peer, but purely peer to peer. Then along came the printing press, and suddenly you had a one-to-many relationship. You could write a book. That book could then be read by a whole bunch of other people. And so you had that one-to-many relationship. There was a huge innovation for society. The internet then came along and said, well, actually, you can have a many-to-many relationship. Anyone can write a book. You can have, you're not just reliant on media or the printing press or your local library or something like that. You can have peer-to-peer or many-to-many, or even what we're seeing in the modern internet is like API to API or web app to web app, interacting, potentially calling 50, 100 different web apps on the back end to provide a service to you, the end user, all many-to-many. Now with finance and money, exactly the same thing has happened. Originally, if I wanted to trade with you, we bartered. I'll give you 5 sheep for, I don't know, 10 gallons of milk or something. We would have to physically meet up and swap those two things. Well, that was geographically hugely restrictive. It was slow. We had to cart our stuff to wherever we were going. We had to get a barter in place. So then money came along, and money was like, okay, well, now we have a common denominator, which makes trade easier, but it was still peer-to-peer. That then caused a problem when you wanted to trade further, because if your dairy farm was 300 miles away from where I've forgotten what my example was, but whatever I was selling is 300 miles away, we either had to carb one way or the other, which was really annoying, even if and then cart it back, that could take days. And we'd have to go along with a cart full of gold, for example, which had risk of being robbed or broken down or something like that. So we came up with banks, which was the equivalent of a printing press for money. Not in the traditional money printer way, but in like, hey, there's a ledger and my bank will go and send just a message to your bank that they have received that chunk of gold. And so you can release your goods to that other person because we owe it to your bank. So you've got that one-to-many relationship of a bank served many and banks could interact with each other. The thing is, that's where it stopped. So unlike the internet revolution, that next step has never happened of the many-to-many. And that is what crypto brings in, which does enable you to go, I want to send you money directly. My money to you, no intermediaries, it's just checked. But equally, you can go, I want to have a super complex product of some exotic options contract that is backed by some kind of collateral, as long as there's a liquidation and you can risk it because you can all see it on chain and what's backing everything and how that would all get unbundled, you can suddenly make these markets liquid. Likewise, you can create things that are currently illiquid and create a liquid market for them. And so this is where a lot of the things of like commercial cooking equipment and stuff like this comes in. And from a cycle point, when you're talking back to there wasn't a product market fit, having been around the space for, well, professionally since 2017, but like interested in it deeply in like since 2014, I remember like the ICO boom, and the number one question walking around events in 2017 was like, why do you have a token? Oh, we're gonna put, I don't know, tractors on chain, fractionalized tractors on chain for farmers. And you're like, why? And no one could answer the why question. That was the thing. But now you suddenly go, well, that's an RWA. An RWA makes sense because there's DeFi. And now you've got DeFi, that's somewhere you can use that as a collateral. And if you can use that as a collateral, you can now borrow that. And the market's actually worked out that some of these primitives that have come before as good proof of concepts didn't have the rest of the technology and infrastructure and ecosystem in place to make them valuable. And this is where we're seeing that really all come together. And as with every technology revolution, it feels really, really slow and then becomes very sudden. And my favorite example of this is like the smartphone. I remember, and this makes me feel so old now, I remember the first iPhone. I remember being in like high school and seeing in person the first iPhone. And I don't know anyone who's listening or if you remember the beer drinking app. All the apps on there was like, it was beer drinking, you tilted up and it looked like the beer went down and you put it back up. That was a dumb proof of concept. But everyone showed you the beer drinking app, and that sparked innovation. 10 years later, I remember when they're like, oh, the iPhone's been, it's the 10-year anniversary of the first iPhone. And I remember sitting there thinking, no way it's been 10 years. No way it's been 10 years, because 10 years ago, if I saw an iPhone in the wild, I would have been like, holy shit, this is the future. I've never seen something like this. Whereas fast forward to that 10-year point in developed countries, if someone's like, oh, I don't have a smartphone, you'd be like, what? What do you mean you don't have a smartphone? Everyone has a smartphone. It's just a part of our lives. And we see the same in that or in game development or online video or any of those things.
I was going to say the last time I was in Honduras, I was like out in the boonies. Okay. And I was asking for a charger because I'm poor American, right? I have a Samsung. And every single other person in Honduras had an iPhone, and so there was not a charger for me. And I'm saying I was out like there's like, you know, horses and like 10, 15-minute drive to the city. But yeah, no, I think that is definitely amazing. And I always, it's funny you talked about cell phones. My dad, significantly older than I guess most dads of people my age. But so he was a rock star when he got the first like massive brick like mobile phone in his like, you know, convertible. I think it might have even been like a Volkswagen Beetle. He talks about how that was one of the like coolest cars then and all this stuff. But when he got the Razor, like the Razor phone, that was, dude, I don't know. I'll say my dad's shoe size grew like 6 that day that he got the Razor. But yeah, no, that's funny. And that's exactly how it is. It is like slowly, then suddenly. And I always think back to, you know, there's that viral clip of the people on the news talking about like, what's the internet? And the guy's like, what do you even use it for? You know, he's like, what do you mean the internet? Like, yeah.
It was a Bill Gates one, but it's perfect. Like Bill Gates had an interview on late night TV for it. And it was like, why would I want the internet? Bill Gates was there like, well, imagine having like anywhere you went access to the news at any moment. And the interviewer was like, well, I do. I've got a newspaper. And he pulled a newspaper out of his bag. And he was like, well, imagine being able to talk to anyone at any moment. He's like, well, I can. I've got my cell phone. And that carried on for like 2 or 3 after that. And then the point wasn't that it was any one of those things. It was that it's all of those things all at once.
Yes.
And that's the difference. And this is what I think we're on the precipice of, as we're seeing like institutional interest in crypto, retail interest, actual pragmatic use cases for it. People going, hang on, I get this. And it's not just the crypto side. So at least in the UK, in traditional finance, open banking is like a term that is being kind of bashed around a lot. And like the thing that made me realize this was about a year ago, the bank I use updated their smartphone app. And one of the first things it asked was, do you want to add another account? Not another account from that bank, but from any other bank or any other financial service. And there was something that legislatively had to come in, and like Revolut and Monzo and all these providers started this way before, being like, where you hold your money isn't necessarily where you use it. Like some people are like, well, Revolut's where I use my travel money. And that's the service. And this is ultimately what crypto does, is it gives you choice. Whereas if you go back to say like the 70s or even like 80s, if you had a mortgage, if you had a bank account, maybe it was with HSBC. And if your bank account was HSBC, then your mortgage would be HSBC and your savings would be HSBC and your pension would be with HSBC. And if you had a loan, it would be HSBC. And if you wouldn't pick somewhere else because it was a monolithic silo that you had to stay in. That now we're already at the point where people are going, well, hang on, I've got these different choices. And crypto's 1 degree over that. I think the next kind of turning of what we're seeing with crypto is going to be that actually the back-end systems become way more unified, either through, like, we've had the proliferation phase of multiple like L1s and L2s. I think we're going to see the better product market fits consolidate, and they'll be, as you said, the wires will be hidden, and it's actually going to be the user interface piece. And actually, it doesn't mean the middlemen can't exist and service providers can't exist, but they have to provide value, because ultimately you could go out. And I'm sure there will be people who go there going, actually, I don't want to drink straight from the fire hose. I really want my financial service provider to create a nice front end that I can do simple payments from and do like a basic savings account for my everyday money. But they still have the choice, as long as they are custodying their assets, to go, but I want to take a bit of this over and do some weird degen thing and buy like an NFT or some kind of food coin or something. That's completely up to them. And if the centralized, or not necessarily centralized, but if the front end is going, I want you to use my front end because it's nice and convenient, but I'm going to charge you like 0.1% on every transaction, they have to provide that value. And some will compete on that value, being like, we've got the latest and greatest products. We do complex multi-smart contract calls, or have complex multi-DApp calls in here that let you get better yield. That's for like the enthusiast. There'll be others that are like the equivalent of like a Bloomberg terminal, going, this is for like sophisticated traders. We've got all this data that you could possibly ever want, and that's why we're charging you, because you can access that data. Then I'm sure there'll be others being like, we have a phone desk. We have a number you can call up if you get stuck. And guess what?
Talk to a
That's
person.
a whole, you can talk to a person. And there'll be a whole thing that they're like, that is their value proposition. You need some help with this? We've got a phone desk. But to get that phone desk, you're going to have to pay 0.1% or whatever on your transactions. Yeah. And this is where I think the market's going to be going. And personally, I don't think that's a bad thing. It just means that anyone who is providing a service or application has to warrant any value they extract from that exchange. And as long as the value they're providing is deemed greater, users have the choice. And ultimately, the capital has the choice to either pay that or not. And I think that creates a competitive environment, which comes back to my main thesis on why DeFi is inevitable, is that that is what the financial system wants to do. It wants to find the most efficient route to maximize its returns based on risk. And you either extract value by minimizing risk or creating greater opportunity than your competitors can.
I love that. I think that was very well said. And actually, so I'm going to kind of change the direction of the conversation for a couple of different reasons. But one of the things is I'm working with a fund right now. And so they have many different outlooks on things. And it has been really, it's hard for me because I don't know, maybe I'm evangelical. When it comes to crypto, it's kind of like, yeah, this makes sense because this gives us ownership and monetization of our own information. Mm-hmm. This also gives us all kinds of different abilities to do more than just the standard with that information and with our assets. But I wanted to ask, for someone that is not in the space, that has some interests in the space, what do you feel like is the best way for them to get involved? Because there's not a direct path to crypto. Just in general, there's not typically. I mean, I spent like 3 to 4 times the amount of money that they charge now at Wharton School of Business for their first ever blockchain fundamentals of blockchain certification class that was like X amount of time. And I learned considerably more than what was taught there from YouTube. And from reading books, which is crazy to some young people nowadays that people still read books. But so for somebody that is outside of crypto, how do you feel like is the best way for them to find their space inside of it?
So you've teed me up beautifully, but I'll avoid it before then. So first is use it is the number one thing. Like use actual crypto, get not just on a centralized exchange, go and actually use some dApps, go and use a wallet. There are some great
Okay,
experiences.
sorry. A dApp is a decentralized application. So this would just be like an app on your iPhone, but these apps exist actually on the blockchain. So you can do all kinds of different things. It's like a website, but a specific.
Yeah. So this is where I'm teed up perfectly, because this is one of the things Radix really set out to solve, is going MetaMask, which is a common like Ethereum and EVM based wallet, is not intuitive to use. Nobody, even a crypto enthusiast today, is confident doing a transaction in MetaMask, because actually what it tells you to do is like, hey, you think you see a front end on a website saying swap X token for Y token. Swap. MetaMask pops up and goes, hey, do you want to sign this transaction? Transaction hash is OX1734533. Approve or deny. That's not like no one actually checks that. They just go, well, I've clicked approve so many times before and I didn't lose everything. I'll just click it again and I trust the front end I was on. But that's where you get all these wallet drain attacks and stuff like this. So like there's countless examples of things like that where no one can confidently use Web3 and DeFi. And so one of the things Radix set out with is both on the builder side, but on the user side, if you can't confidently use it, no one's actually going to come and use this in a big way. So Radix, even if you don't want to get into the Radix ecosystem or want to look at Radix in a big way, I think it's a great starting point. Go to RadQuest.
Yes.
If you just Google RadQuest from Radix, like it shows you and talks you through, like it teaches you like what this is. It gets you set up with the Radix wallet and how to do some basic things like dummy swaps on a DEX, and you can actually see and use dApps and understand what they're doing and the power there. But the best way I can describe why Radix is really taking quite a firm approach on this and how the kind of dApp and your asset approach works is similar to the cash one you said, which is it's a mind shift from your wallet or like your bank account being where you hold your funds and where you use your funds to being your wallet is where you hold your funds and a dApp is where you use your funds. And if you think that's actually really similar to how things work in the real world, my wallet, my physical wallet I carry around might have my gym card in it, my bank card in it, my driver's license in it. And it holds them. It keeps them securely in my pocket. I don't get a new wallet for every store I want to go to or a new wallet for every different thing. They just all go in there. And then when I get to the gym, I get out my gym card and they know what to do with that. And then I put it back in my wallet. My wallet allows things to come in and out of it and be either shown like a badge, or if it's like physical cash, I take some dollars out and hand it to someone. And that's how I use it in their store. I don't come into the store and have to pick up a brand new wallet and put stuff in there. That's the difference. And actually, this is far more what we're used to compared to what we've currently got to with kind of online banking as it is today. And once you start getting that, the wallet is like your authorization point. Your wallet is like your almost like your two-factor authentication to this is securely holding my stuff. And then I say what can be done with it. Unfortunately, pretty much everywhere other than Radix, right now, when you say, yes, I want to do stuff, is you see the wires. And those wires are highly confusing for everyone. On Radix, because of some choices we made in our design stack and ultimate technology stack, is actually making sure that when you say this asset is going to be removed from your wallet, it's going to go here, and this is what's going to come back. That's not a preview. It's not a guess. It's not a simulation. That is enforced by the network on the actual Radix engine, so the virtual machine for Radix, that enforces that asset behavior, not the dApp. And until you take that kind of ground up approach, you can't go and put that somewhere else. And if you can't put that somewhere else, ultimately someone's not going to be confident. Like imagine going into your banking app and being like, oh, I'm going to send some money to you. And then your banking app just came up with a random string of numbers and just said, you happy to go ahead? By the way, if you do the wrong thing, all of this is gone and it's never coming back. Most people probably wouldn't click that. The only reason they're clicking it today in like Ethereum or in Solana or something like that is because there's a hell of a lot of money they think they can make. So they're making a risk-adjusted opportunity play. And that's why people settle for billions of dollars being lost through smart contract hacks or wallet drains and things like that, because risk-adjusted, they think it's worth it. And then you've either got to make that risk way lower or the opportunity way higher, or ideally both, to onboard a lot more people. And I think that's really what we're seeing a lot of the industry focusing on right now.
That's fantastic. So then I've been seeing, well, I definitely have played around with RadQuest. That was a suggestion from the machinist. He's a really great dude. He actually
Awesome.
got us
Yep.
into Radix live at the launch of Dancoin. So we were live, and then we were like, oh, we know the machinist for a long time. We know that he's a good guy. So we both set up our wallets. It was very quick and easy. We bought like $20 a Dan. Dan's been doing great. I know a lot of what's going on in the background, so I'm excited about what Dancoin is going to be coming out with. But the UI and the user interface, the wallets were very beautiful and intuitive. I did enjoy the experience, and the transactions are very quick.
Yep.
It instills a lot of confidence. Definitely a lot of things that you guys have on that side that I like a lot. One of the questions that I guess I have is that some of these other chains that I spent a good amount of time on have had a lot of really big publicity here lately as far as interoperability.
Yep.
So like on the Cardano side, the Bitcoin OS news is the like exciting thing about being able to be a layer where smart contracts from Bitcoin can actually execute on
Yep.
Cardano. Tell me a little bit about Radix's interoperability place, because I was speaking to Phil. I don't know if you know Phil from Anastasia Labs. He's the
Don't
CEO of
think so.
Anastasia Labs over
Yep.
on the Cardano side. He absolute genius. But I actually spoke with him, sat down with him, I think it was yesterday. And sorry, he was talking about something that they're building, and then he mentioned that some of the most innovative, amazing blockchains were Radix was one of the ones that he mentioned about how the security is amazing, the user interface, the actual structure that you guys have is really great.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of what they're building is to be able to create an interoperability framework layer that could
Yep.
be used by either side. So I just wanted to ask about what's Radix thinking about interoperability, and like how are they trying to expand that? And do you think interoperability is important? Because there are some people that believe that one chain should be able to scale to do all of the things. And I want to know where your mindset is at in that space.
So I promise I am not hedging my answer here, but it's all about time frame. If you go on a short time frame, interoperability is hugely important. But the specific bit, I think, is the ability for assets to move between different chains and different ecosystems. So that's like your bridges, your layer zeros, your wormholes, etc. That is necessary because ultimately you want assets to move around. I think there's an interesting short to midterm, and again, when I say short and midterm, I'm talking like short term being like this year, midterm being like next couple of years, long term being like 5-10 years plus sort of thing. On the short to midterm, I think there's an interesting one for having a home chain which then triggers smart contract actions and bridging of assets on other chains that's set off from like one home chain. On the long term, I don't think interoperability matters. I think interoperability isn't between multiple chains isn't going to be something that happens. Not only because that then leads to fragmentation and breaks atomic composability, but also if you have a monolithic chain design that can scale to meet all of those needs, you wouldn't. And if you look in other technology scenarios at a platform level or like the kind of layer one level, the value is in network effects. And that's the same beyond any other kind of thing. Like, why does everyone, why did like 3/4 of the planet end up using like meta services? It's not because meta services, there wasn't a better social network that came along. It's just like, well, everyone's on there. Everything I get from there, all the information's there. So I go and use that. Same with like video platforms. Why is YouTube the dominant user-generated content platform?
For now.
Because for now, potentially, but it's going to take a lot to remove it or some big shock because all the content's there. Everyone can upload for free, and it causes them a bunch of problems. Like, obviously, my background, I'm nerd on online video platforms. They've got major issues if they weren't owned by Google. But the consolidation of you get that, and then you maybe get some fringe services. And by fringe, I mean like they just fill different niches. So like you've got Meta products, and then you've got Twitter. They're different services. They both coexist. And then you have LinkedIn as like that weird third one that doesn't really meet. It's very specialized for what it's doing.
I've started
Can you
using
tell me?
LinkedIn. I've started
Oh,
using LinkedIn like really hard. I
oh God,
never
no.
have used
Oh
LinkedIn.
God, no.
I feel like it's like Facebook for people that work, but then like now there's like, I don't know. There's like this slightly older generation that like grew up with technology, and they're like, LinkedIn. This is the place
Yep.
where all of the activities happen. But then
Yep.
like I feel like also I've had more successful direct conversations via Twitter
Yep.
that were like straight to the business, as opposed to like I have to connect with everybody around this person before I send this
Yep.
person a message. It might take me 2 weeks because there's a limitation unless I'm going to pay $50 a month or whatever.
Yep.
Like it would be different if I was making, so much money that it's like, oh, okay, that's sure. I'll spend, $150 to expand my reach on this
Yep.
networking platform that people don't use as much as I wish they did
Yep.
because I'm paying for it. So I don't know. I don't
Yeah, and
know.
it's the way of things though. Is like the value of those platforms is the network, and it's the same for L1s, and it comes back to the current area we're in is like the bridges and like interoperability layers are solving a hair on fire problem, which is there's opportunity in all of these different places, and it could move where that is, and I need a way to move my assets and how I'm using those assets between them as quickly as possible. The only reason that exists is to try and cover up the problem that we've created a new siloed ecosystem. It's slightly faster, but the dumb example I give of this is outside of crypto, hard for people to understand, but it's flash loans. So flash loans are unique to DeFi, where it is the ability to put up some collateral, borrow money against that to do a trade and pay back that borrowed money all in a single transaction. So essentially you can think of it as instant. It's why it's called a flash loan. In traditional finance, you literally can't do that. There is some delay. Any delay greater than no delay is too much for that to work. There is risk occurring. Now, why would you want that? Well, the big thing that's used for is arbitrage. And arbitrage, you might be like, why do I care about arbitrage as your average Joe? Well, that means that you don't have to be thinking about, oh, do I do my foreign currency exchange at this platform or another platform, or on which one am I going to get the better rate on? If arbitrage is working well, they should all be balanced to what the fair market rate is, because as soon as they unbalance, there's an opportunity. Currently, the distance of that imbalance comes down to what is the risk in the time it takes me to buy on one and sell on the other one. Is that risk of the prices being, or someone beating me to it, greater than the profit I can make there? If it is, I'm not going to do that, and then you have an imbalanced market. With flash loans, you have no risk, because you either borrow the money, do the swap, and pay off the loan with a bit of profit to yourself all in one transaction, or none of it happens, which basically means you can arbitrage essentially risk-free, which creates an incredibly efficient market across different places. Now, as soon as you start talking about interoperability layers and stuff like that, you introduce some kind of delay. And even like one of the strengths of Ethereum is, while it has scalability problems, it maintains its atomic composability. So its ability to transact anything with anything else at any point instantly in one transaction. And the market's seen that now. The market has seen how powerful that can be. And when you have something like Radix that solves that in a scalable way while maintaining that superpower, as long as other things go right, that is the gold standard. Because otherwise, as soon as you start having these interoperability layers, you add some kind of delay or fund lockup or something that makes the market less efficient. And this ties straight back to one of the first points I made to you, which is forget about ideology. Pragmatically, this is where the market's going, because the global finance system wants to allocate capital as quickly as efficiently as possible based on opportunity and risk. Nothing is quicker and more efficient than instant. And
That's awesome.
as soon as you've got that option of instant, that is always going to be the gold standard. And so if you can meet that, I think, and long term, I do think people like Radix and potentially others are going to meet that. And once you reach that point, why would you have that interoperability layer? Because all of the assets are going to go to the place where they can interact with anything. And this is also like some of the other arguments I see is like on sharding solutions that don't maintain that composability or atomic composability between shards go, well, you can just put your NFTs on one shard and your DeFi on another shard. And at the time, that sounds really smart. You're like, cool. Yeah, but now I want to go and use my NFT that's suddenly worth $100,000 as collateral in a loan. Well, how does it get from the NFT shard to the DeFi shard?
Mm-hmm.
And then what if it needs to get liquidated? How does that work? And now you've added this layer of complexity. You're showing some of the wires. And just like in traditional finance systems, where everything's siloed and you've got a bunch of middlemen stitching everything together, most of the time with someone locked in a basement using Microsoft Excel, realistically, you still end up in that situation where you're going, what if that breaks? I've now got a counterparty risk. I've got to account for that and offset that based on my opportunity. And it's a less efficient market. There's less movement of capital, there's less free flow of capital, and there's higher risk. And anything that reduces that risk means that your risk-adjusted returns get greater. And that's why I think long-term a monolithic system, as long as it can scale and maintain that atomic composability, wins. And to my knowledge, Radix is the only thing that has a plan to do that.
That's super exciting, and that's awesome. This, man, so we have gone for a while now, and there were so many things that I still want to ask and I want to talk about. I'm going to try to knock out these last three really quickly, and I missed one of the big things that I definitely wanted to talk about. So
we'll do a speed fire round. We'll do a speed fire round. I'll try and answer anything within 30 seconds.
Okay, fantastic. So the first one is for people that are in the traditional finance world, things like venture funds that invest in technology normally. What would you say to them, or how would you convince them that there is like a there when it comes to crypto, and that this is a technology they should look at? This is something that they should think about investing in or getting involved in, and like what reasons, or how would you make someone that is uncomfortable with this kind of interaction, these kinds of interactions, to get accustomed to it, right?
So, number one, if you're in that field, you already understand what I mean by arbitrage. If you tell me that even the simple fix of flash loans creating risk-free instant arbitrage between markets globally isn't a massive thing on its own, I don't need to sell you anymore. You get that. For you personally, if you're a VC fund, you have illiquid assets currently that aren't traded. They could be RWAs, which you could then use on-chain and make those illiquid assets as collateral at some degree of loan to value ratio for other capital, which means you can make that currently illiquid and inactive capital active in market. And even if you made a tiny return on that over the borrow cost, you're already making more profit than you are today. And if you're seeing as a venture fund with $1 billion AUM of currently illiquid capital, even if you could get 10% of that active in market, imagine how much more money your fund would make.
See, that's fantastic. That's an excellent pitch. I keep trying to say the tech, but you're saying the tech's ability to allow you more financial freedom with your money, your assets and stuff.
You can do stuff with it. You can fractionalize those assets. You can utilize them in different ways. And this is the marketer in me coming out. Like, don't tell people about what your feature is. Tell them about what the problem it solves.
Gotcha. No, that's fantastic. And then, of course, I wanted to know if you could go anywhere and somebody else is buying, where are you going, and what are you eating, and what are you drinking? Like, and if you have like all three parts, like the middle and the dessert, let me know. Describe it to me. Paint a vivid image for me.
So I am. Do I have to do this all in one sitting, or can I have like a day of food?
No, you can have a day of food. And if you have to fly to different places for different parts of the meal, you can do it.
Okay. So I am starting off with a traditional, simple, but perfectly prepared with high quality ingredients English breakfast. Full English breakfast.
And what is that? What is an English breakfast?
So fried eggs, bacon, sausages, grilled mushrooms, grilled tomato, toast, maybe some hash browns.
Okay.
And if you're crazy, a black pudding, which if you're from the UK or Scotland, you'll know what that is. Anywhere else, you probably don't. Then for lunch, probably a light lunch somewhere, maybe some pasta. Again, I like simple foods done perfectly. Super high quality ingredients, nothing fancy for the sake of it. And then I'd finish off with, wherever you can find me, the best fillet steak and triple cooked chips anywhere in the world, please.
Okay, that's fantastic. But no, that's fantastic. So you're saying like maybe go to like Japan for some like crazy like whatever that special wagyu. It's like
Wagyu. So the
yeah.
thing with, I've only had it once because it's extortionately expensive, and like it's not like normal steak. It's delicious and the flavor is incredible, but you only want a tiny bit of it. I found otherwise it was too rich. Like I would want like one wagyu steak for the table, and then everyone else has their normal steak, and then you have like your like just a little bit of wagyu on your fork, and then another bit of like proper steak for the texture and like the sustenance, but the flavor of the wagyu. That'd be awesome.
That's fantastic. No, I love that. And I appreciate that answer so much. I definitely haven't had Wagyu yet in my life, but I'm hoping that, this bull market might be the one to solve that for me. So I appreciate your time so much, Adam. And thank you for coming. Look, I would like to have you back sometime soon. I would also like to reach out to more projects and talk to more projects in the Radix ecosystem. I think there's so many smart people in this space, and there's so many different sides of this Rubik's Cube or this puzzle that we're all trying to solve. And it's amazing the different use cases that people find for blockchain. I was actually just listening to and talking to Journey, a jewelry making company, Web3 company, where you buy the jewelry and it has an NFC chip inside, and it tells you exactly where all the parts of it were sourced. And I thought that was such an interesting use case. And there's so many people that keep coming up with these interesting use cases, and I loved it.
Again, back in 2017, that would be a proper why are you doing this? Now you've just described an RWA and provenance of valuable things. Provenance has value. That information has value, and being able to have a trustless source of that has value of putting it on there to the future value of that item. So like this is where like all of these things are suddenly coming together. 2017, you're putting jewelry on the blockchain. What? Why? Why does anyone care? Now when you suddenly go, this is provenance, and I can use that as an asset, and maybe use that as collateral because I know that it's a real thing on there. Now I've got a reason to come and use it.
That's amazing. I appreciate your time so much, Adam. Everybody that's listening, look, Radix is an amazing blockchain. I've used it. I enjoy the experience. I'll say it's definitely one of the top ones that I've experienced. So anybody that has any questions, leave questions in the comments. If you have any questions for Adam, I will write them all down and have them for next time. I need to have him back. Radix is definitely super interesting to me. And like I said, I just spoke to Phil from Anastasia Labs, and he was saying he was singing the praises of Radix. And so I'm glad that I got you here just right after
as CMO, this is my number one most annoying thing, is that I hear these things privately so often. Please, any of you people who are seeing this being like Radix is really cool, make my life just 5% easier and to like put a public tweet out about it, please. Because you get this behind the scenes so often, and it is the thing in this space is like attention is 90% of the challenge.
Yes.
And that's what we all need to do, is draw attention to the cool things that's being done all over.
All right, Adam. I appreciate you, and thank you, everyone. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. If you have any experiences with Radix and you see this on Twitter or you see this on YouTube, tell us your experience. Make sure to check out RadQuest. It's one of my favorite things, I think, period, in the entire crypto ecosystem, because it teaches you kind of like step by step how to get your feet wet in crypto without having to be scared. But thank you, Adam. And I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.